It's hard to forget the images of Yazidi hostage Nadia Murad hugging her family once again after escaping 3 months of sex slavery at the hands of Islamic State terrorists. In 2014, the 25-year-old was abducted from her home in northeastern Iraq and then held by the Islamic State in Mosul, where she was repeatedly tortured and raped alongside thousands of other Yazidi women and girls.
We hoped our fate would be for us to be killed like the men, instead of being sold and raped by Syrians, Iraqis, Tunisians, and Europeans.
Nadia gave her testimony to the world a decade ago, sparking mass outrage. Her only crime was being Yazidi, an ancient religious minority in Iraq that the Islamic State deemed to be heretical for not following Islam. But her story forced the world to reckon with the use of sexual assault as a weapon of war, and to believe women. Yet 10 years later, the issue doesn't seem to have gone anywhere. You don't usually see a fashion show in a parliament session, but this is no typical government meeting. This week, officials from around the world have gathered for a special session at the Israeli parliament to discuss how to combat gender-based violence in war.
Bring them back home now, we don't care what it takes.
At the beginning of February, when Russians were just a few dozen kilometers away, Ukrainian soldiers stormed the house where I was staying. They checked the perimeter and looked like they had just come back from a battle. As they were leaving, one of them pointed at me and said, "You should cut your beautiful hair. When the Russians come, you'll be the first they notice and you'll be raped." We've seen it happen to girls like you.
That's Nastia Popandopoulos. She's come all the way from Ukraine to speak at this panel, along with many other powerful women from across the globe who are on a mission to speak out about gender-based violence in war.
Russian soldiers done many things to Ukrainian women. Group rapes, dozen soldiers raping one woman in front of the eyes of her children. During therapeutic sessions, a lot of abused women don't remember what has happened to them. Their psycho literally denies to accept their horrible experiences.
But that's not the only reason these panelists are here. They've also come to stand in solidarity with the female Israeli victims of Hamas's brutal attack on October 7th. It took until March of 2024 for the United Nations to finally present a report confirming that rape and gang rape occurred during the Hamas onslaught in Israel, and revealing evidence that hostages taken by the terror group have been raped while held captive in Gaza and are likely still facing such abuse, like released hostage Amit Susana.
His name was Muhammad. He used to sit on the bed in front of me, wearing his shorts, laying down. I remember I couldn't look at him. I was just like looking away and covering myself with a blanket so I won't have to look at him. It made me feel really uncomfortable. He also kept asking me, do I like sex? Do I have sex with my boyfriend? I knew that he's up to something. I knew that something bad is gonna happen.
Even after Amit Susana decided to tell the world about how she had been assaulted while in captivity, there still continues to be rampant denial about what happened to Israeli women. To the point that today, the families of 5 female Israeli hostages allowed the government to release a video of their loved ones being brutally kidnapped. At this panel, the mothers and sister of 3 female Israeli hostages that are still being held captive have chosen to speak up, including Amanda Damari, the mother of 27-year-old hostage Emily Damari, who rarely speaks to the public.
Emily was seen alive by the hostages that came home, but that was November. I've been deliberating whether to speak here or not because as much as I support the subject of this conference, I'm not a politician or a diplomat or an expert on the subject, only a mother. And I must admit that so far, I have no proof of any sexual abuse that's been carried out against my daughter. And I'm also superstitiously frightened that by talking about the subject, it might actually become a reality for her. But I think that I must speak out now for her and the other women because just the thought that it might have happened or could be happening to her now in the terror tunnels in Gaza is enough to make me break out in a cold sweat and not sleep at night.
Sasha Ariev's little sister is also being held captive.
Karina is my little and my only sister. She is only 19 years old, and she has been held hostage in Gaza for 227 days by Hamas terrorists. Karina is held captive with 16 other women, and we know that at least some have been subjected to sexual violence. We have no information about Karina's current health, but we are aware that sexual violence, including rape, is occurring in captivity.
Israeli Knesset member Sheli Tal Meron has organized this coalition with the organization Elnet, with the hope of taking it to Paris next to give a voice to both Israeli victims and women around the world, so that females stop being used as political pawns in war.
There is nothing one could do to the enemy worse than targeting women to shame and humiliate a nation. That is what Hamas tried to do on October 7th.
Every day I'm losing my mind, holding.
For now, in Israel, the agony still ripples through society and will continue to do so even when every last hostage returns home.
Too hard.